Hello, Hannah. Thanks for joining today's session. All right. Hello, everyone. We appreciate your attendance at the current webinar. I'm Shai, a customer experience specialist with eSkilled, and I'll be facilitating today's session focused on AVETMISS reporting. Joining me is Reg, our specialist, who will be co-facilitating this webinar. Would you like to say hi, Reg?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Reg, like what Shai just said. I work as one of the e-skilled SM, and for today's session, I'll sit on the background, and if along the way you'll have questions, please feel free to drop them in the public chat, and I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. And there you go. Welcome to today's webinar, and enjoy the session. Go ahead, Shai.
All right. Thank you so much, Reg. As you may have noticed, your microphones have been muted, but we've made sure to enable the Q&A chat box for you to share any concerns or queries. Some of you might have taken part in our previous sessions. This webinar is a reaffirmation of the topic, giving us the opportunity to provide further assistance or clarification on any concerns or questions related to AvidMiss. By the end of the session, our goal is to help you navigate AvidMiss reporting requirements with confidence, understand the critical role of data accuracy and consistency in the process, successfully generate and validate the report via AVS, and correct AVID reports within the SMS. Last but not the least, maximize the existing SMS features to help correct AVID errors. So to start with, let's define what AVID is. All right, what is AVETMIS? AVETMIS, or Australian Vocational Education and Training Management Information Statistical Standard, reporting is used to collect, store, and report data about vocational education and training or VET activities. The primary goal of AVITMIS reporting is to provide accurate and comprehensive information about VET for policy development, program evaluation, and quality assurance purposes. Early preparation allows you to carefully review and verify the accuracy of your data, reducing the risk of errors that could lead to incorrect reporting. Preparing early ensures that you meet all the necessary compliance requirements while reducing the administrative burden associated with the reporting deadlines. We hope that by the end of the session, we can help you appreciate the necessity of entering complete and correct data into the student management system and validating your AvidMiss reports early to help you successfully submit them before the deadline. Before we start generating the AvidMiss report, first, let's ensure that all the data is complete by going through the different fields and the system required that are included in the generated net files. All right, so let me just grab the presenter screen. So this one, and let me just share my student management system. All right, please let me know if you can see the student management system. You can react by selecting the thumbs up icon or thumbs up imagery. Awesome. Thank you so much for that one. All right, so let's first check your RTO settings. All right, so currently we're on the settings page. In the RTO settings, or your RTO settings relate to the NAT10 or training organization file. Basically, the NAT10 file is about your RTO and contains information such as contact persons, phone number, email address, etc. In the details tab, you need to ensure that all information is correct and accurate to avoid any errors. In some instances, an error occurs when the RTO legal name, this one, does not match the organization name listed on the training.gov website. Thus, it is highly recommended for registered organizations to have their name in the SMS match the one listed on the training.gov website. Furthermore, under RTO settings, you'll see the student prefix and enrollment prefix under the certificates tab. For the student prefix, this one, usually if this is set to more than 3 characters, the student IDs will be trimmed off on the NAT files, resulting in duplicates. Our recommendation is to ensure that your student prefix is set to maximum of 3 characters only. Enrollment prefix, on the other hand, is set to maximum of 10 characters. All right, so that's it for this part. Then we need to check the locations tab. Your locations or the locations tab is related to the NAT20 or Training Organization Delivery Location file. The NAT20 file holds a record for each delivery location to which training has been delivered during the collection period. It is a must for the location name to be set to a maximum of 100 alphanumeric characters, whereas the location ID should be set to a maximum of 10 alphanumeric characters to avoid any reporting errors. Please note that a training organization delivery location name must uniquely describe a delivery location. Hence, we are not allowed to create a training delivery location name that is a duplicate. Another thing to note is that the address details should be complete. So let me show you a sample. All right. This one, Townsville test, if you've noticed the location ID and location name are the same. So we need to make sure that the training delivery location uniquely describes a location. So this may result or this will result to errors later on in the AVETMISS reporting since we have the same location ID and location name. And another thing to note under location, the address details should be complete. So we have here a sample location. This is online, though this location or I mean this training will be facilitated online. We also need to ensure that the address details is complete. All right, so that's it for this part. Unless you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to send it to the Q&A chat box and Reg will respond to your queries as soon as possible. Thank you. All right, then after checking the settings, of course, let's check the Units tab. So to check the Units tab, just go to Programs, then select Units. All right, let me just select a sample unit here. All right, for units, this relates to the NAT60 and NAT120. The NAT60 or subject file contains a record for each subject that your RTO has in scope and in which learners have participated in that activity during the collection period. Subjects are often referred to as competencies, units of competencies, or units, whereas NAT120 is your training activity file, which contains a record for each subject in which learners have undertaken that activity during the collection period. To avoid reporting errors, please ensure that the unit code, this one, and the unit name, this one, match the ones listed in training.gov if you are delivering accredited units. Please also ensure that the nominal hours have been filled out. If you are uncertain what the nominal hour is, you may access the NCVER document for nationally agreed nominal hours. So for this one, since this unit doesn't have a nominal hours, we need to make sure that this field has been filled out. So for this one, let's make sure this has been completed before we update the specific unit. Another thing to note under Units tab is you need to make sure that you have selected the correct VET flag information. So VET flag indicates whether the intention of the program or subject is vocational education. If VET flag is set to yes, the intention of the program or subject is vocational, otherwise select no. For the nominal hours, I'll just assume that it is 20 for now. Then after you have completed this information, you can just select update. Again, if you are uncertain what the nominal hour is, you need to revisit the NCVER document with nationally agreed nominal hours. Right. So aside from the units, in addition to the units tab, you also need to check the program settings to ensure successful reporting. So let me just go to programs and let me just select a sample program here. All right. Your program settings relate to your NAT 30, NAT 120, and NAT 130 files. If you are delivering a nationally accredited training, please ensure that the program code, this one, as well as the program name, match the one on the training.gov website. You also need to enable qualification or accredited course if required, this one, and select the type. So you also need, let's say, for example, if you disable qualification or accredited course, you need to select the type, whether it's non-accredited course, unit or module only, part qualification, and skill set. After you have completed these fields, you also need to make sure that you fill out the NAT 30A fields. These are the Program Recognition Identifier, AQF level, Program Field of Education Identifier, ANSCO Identifier, and Program Identifier Local for WA State. If you use this button, the Sync TGA option, the NAT 30 information will be automatically populated if the information is available in TGA. And of course, last but not the least, you also need to update the status as well if it's a nationally recognized training or non-accredited training. All right, so that's it for this tab. Then another thing we need to check is your program instances. Let me just select a sample program instance here. All right, so we have your sample program instance. For your program instances, please ensure that a location has been selected. So you can update the location by going to this tab, the details tab, then scroll down, then you'll locate or you'll find here the location field. So we have already selected a location for this program instance. Another thing to check is the AVETMISS tab. In the AVETMISS tab, please select a reporting state, whether it's national or NC or a different state, a funding source national, a unit delivery mode, and vet in schools flag. Vet in schools flag identifies whether the unit of competency or module training activity is a part or is part of a vet in schools program. If this is set to yes, the training activity in a program or of study is a vet in schools program. Otherwise, set it to no if not. So you need to also note that additional fields will appear if you have selected a state-based reporting. Let me show you a sample. Currently, this is set to national or NCVER. If we select, for example, Victoria, notice the other fields appeared specific to contracts. If you need additional assistance in filling out contracts, please reach out to our eSkilled support team. Right? Next, in the program instance, we also need to check the units. So we go here and we need to check this part. We need to ensure that the unit delivery mode, this one, as well as the predominant delivery mode have been filled out. Scheduled hours should be filled out as well. In this sample we have presented, you may have observed the absence of scheduled hours in some units, as well as the unit delivery mode or predominant delivery mode. Again, it's essential to ensure that the delivery mode is completed in the AVETMISS tab of the program instance, this one, which is this one. In that way, you don't need to manually update the individual units or the delivery mode per individual units. Also, it's worth noting that scheduled hours are not mandatory for some states. But for example here, let me just update the scheduled hours, unit delivery mode, and predominant delivery mode. Right, for the unit delivery mode, this is external 20. All right. So when updating some of the information on their units, you can just select this button, which is the action, then action button, then edit, select a unit delivery mode, a predominant delivery mode, and of course, scheduled hours. Then select update once done. All right. So everything is all set. We have already completed all of the information under the units tab. On top of the things that we need to check, it is also very crucial to check the student details as well as when submitting a report. So it is important to complete all of the information required before enrolling students so you won't need to manually update them later on. So to check for the student details, you can just go to students. Right, then you can just select a test student. Just select a sample here. All right, so we have here webinar student as our sample. Yep. And just to provide you more information regarding the student details, this relates to NAT 80, which is the client file, and the NAT 85, which contains the client contact details. The NAT 80 file holds a record for each learner which have undertaken VET activity during the collection period. Records holds information such as full name, gender, date of birth, disabilities, prior educational achievements, unique student identifier or USI, and residential address, etc. On the other hand, the NAT 85 file hold contact details information such as phone number, email contact address, etc. So this is our sample student. To check AVETMISS related fields in the student enrollment, just go on this tab, the enrollments tab, select action, then edit. All right, you will be routed to the enrollment tab. Let's just wait for the date to load. So what you need to do is select the continue button to be routed to the AVETMISS tab. All right. In this tab, you need to make sure that all of the information or all fields have been filled out to avoid any reporting errors. So currently, if you've noticed, some of the fields are blank. So we need to update these fields to avoid reporting errors in AVETMISS. So let me just check here or update this field, English. And this one, since we have selected a disability for the student, you need to make sure that this field, the student disabilities field, has been filled out as well. Again, it's very important that we select correct information as well as input correct information to avoid reporting errors and AVID. Right. And the employment status, of course, let's fill this one out. Of course, last but not the least, the study reason ID is blank. So again, we need to fill out blank fields to avoid reporting errors. So let me just select a study reason ID. Training, contract ID, client ID, apprenticeship. You can just fill this out if student is under apprenticeship and traineeship. Once you are already done or once you have already filled out the needed fields for AVID-MIS, you can just select the continue button. All right. Once you're already done, you can just select submit to save your changes. All right. So aside from checking the AVID-MIS tab, what we also need to check is the units tab of the students. So we can only edit the actual start if the student has already started the activity. For the actual end, you need to update or you can only update the outcome by updating the actual end first. So, yep, that's it for the actual start and actual end. All right, we understand that manually checking the student records may take time. Hence, our recommendation is to generate an enrollment report to check for missing details. To generate an enrollment report, go to Reports, select Enrollment. So we have here, you can use an existing enrollment report template or you can just use a new template or a brand new template by selecting the new button. So for our sample here, I'll just use an existing report template. Just check. So let me just check the existing template. Right. And also you need to select the fields you want to include. So for our sample, I'll just use this calendar year as the start to from range. Then since we will be checking AVID-MIS related fields, please ensure to tick this box to include AVID-MIS fields in the report that you will generate. All right. So we have successfully generated an enrollment report. Let me just show all of the students or expand the data table. All right. So we have here sample test students. Let's check for AVID-MIS related fields. For example, we have some students with no address indicated. It's also very important to complete the details or the address of the students on their details. And if you've noticed, we also have blank fields here. We don't have main language spoken at home for some of our students, prior education and disability. So in this way, it would be easier for you to check what fields were not filled out upon enrollment. Right? So we also have other fields there specific to AVITMIS, high school level, indigenous status, employment status. So this is very important if you wanted to check if there are blank fields in AVITMIS. You can just generate an enrollment report and select the filters that you wanted to include. And once you're already done, you also have an option here to export this file into a spreadsheet. And that way it's easier for you to filter the students with blank fields or blank AVITMIS related information. All right. And also, another important thing to note by utilizing enrollment and unit reports, you have the capability to do a bulk update, simplifying the process of updating various AVITMIS related fields. For example, generating a unit report allows you to efficiently update the mode of delivery in bulk. Let me just show you a sample. So, to generate a unit report, you can just go here, Units tab. Again, same with the enrollment report, you have an option to use an existing template or you can create your new template for the unit report. I'll use an existing template. Then you can just select the filter or update the filters that you wanted to be included in your data table. So it's still loading, still taking time to load. So since it's still loading, please be reminded to include AVITMIS fields as well if you also wanted to check AVITMIS related information in your report. So it's still loading. Just check this calendar here as the start to from range, then select search. So the system is still loading, is still pulling up all of the data. Since this is our test site, we have a lot of test enrollments in here. So that's why it's taking time to load or pull up the data based on the filters I've added to this unit report. Still loading. So while waiting for this one to load, if you have further concerns or questions, again, please feel free to send it to the Q&A chat box and Reg will respond to your queries as soon as possible. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to let you eyeball the screen first. This is how the unit report looks like. Then if you wanted to, let's say, bulk update the delivery mode, let me just check. We have here some students with blank unit delivery, I guess. Let me just check for the students with blank unit delivery. Yep, so we have here some students with blank mode of delivery. If you wanted to update this unit or you wanted to bulk update them, what you can just do is select either all of the students. You have an option to tick this box and that would select all of the students, or you can just select or tick the box specific to some students. So let me just update this one. So let's check the blank delivery mode. Yep, here. So let's update test A student. So I'm going to select the student. Once you have already selected the students that you wanted to bulk update, you can just select the bulk update button. Then from the fields button, you can just choose what specific fields or field you wanted to update. So for our sample, I'll just choose mode of delivery, select add fields, then I'll just update this to internal as our sample. All right. Once you have already filled out the required information, what's going to happen is the delivery mode for the students or the students that we have selected will be updated to internal only. So I'll just select this button. So a modal will appear asking you if you wanted to update the selected rows. So if you wanted to update them, you can just select update. All right. So it will load or it will take time to load because our system will bulk update the blank information specific for mode of delivery. All right, so that's it for this part. Unless you have any concerns or question, you can just wait for this one to load so that I can also show you what it looks like after we have bulk updated that specific field. I believe we selected test A earlier. Great, so for test A student, all right, so for test A students, supposedly we all have or we already have mode of delivery for this student since we have bulk updated it. Right? So that's it for this part. Then what we need to do, since we have already checked all of the fields required for AVETMISS reporting, we will try generating the NAT files. So to generate your NAT files, what you can do is just go to the settings. All right. Then select AVETMISS button. So you can just choose the dates you would like to export. So to submit your data to your state training authority, you can just choose the appropriate state from the type drop-down menu. If you're also required to do reporting to national programs, you can just select a designated box for national reporting programs. For example, I select Victoria. You have an option here to include the national reporting programs. I'll set it to national or NCVER for this webinar. Then you also have some options to pick the NAT 30A for program file because some states require submission of NAT 30A instead of NAT 30. You also have an option to include NY students and of course state reporting programs since we have selected national or NCVER as our reporting type. So I'll just update my end date to the 30th of November. Then once you have already selected your preferred filters for your report, what you can just do is select the export button. All right. All right, so it's still exporting or downloading at this point. So once you have already downloaded or exported your NAT files, what you need to do is submit to AVS to check if your uploaded data is compliant with the AVETMIS standard. So let me just show you a sample we have here, AVETMIS NAT file. So let me try submitting it to AVS. Right. So I already have my AVS open or my AvidMIS validation software open. But just to give you more information on how you can upload the NAT files to AVS, what you can do is sign into AVS. You need to sign in using your unique ID and password. You can just create your login details or confirm with your organization as you may have an employee who has access to the site already. Then what we need to do is validate. So to validate the exported NAC files, you can just select new collection. Oh, I was logged out. Let me just try logging in again. So let me try logging in to AVS Wonderful. And you can just select new collection. Then you need to update the type or the filters in the collection details. For the year, I'm going to select 2023. And for the period, I'm going to select January to December since my exported NAT files covered dates from the 1st of January until the 30th of November. I already have an existing submission here or existing validation. So all you need to do is remove this one if you wanted to do or to validate NAT files again. Then you can just select this button, the Add Files button, and you can just select the NAT files that you need to upload. Once you have already added the NAT files, you can just select the Upload Files button. So the status is currently uploaded, so that means we can proceed with the validation. Just to give you more information regarding the validate button here, AVS first performs basic validation of data files by uploading them into Ncver's internal server, followed by full validation. Please also note that errors and warnings are generated against records that do not comply with validation rules. When we say warnings, it should be reviewed and amended where possible before revalidating data, but generally it will not prevent you from submitting your data. Whereas for errors, errors must be corrected in the source data. Example, your student management system, and then revalidated before submission. You will not be able to submit data that contains errors in AVS. So let me just validate this one or validate our exported NAT files. So it's still validating. All right, so we have a lot of errors since this NAT files came from our test site. So we have here three options to check for the errors. We have export summary, which provides you an overview of all the errors encountered. We also have export details, which allows you to find a specific warning or error details. And export AVS rules, same with description or definition, it will export the error report based on AVS rules. For example here, I'll choose export details since I wanted to find specific warning and error details. Right? So that's how you generate an error report. But we already have here an existing error report. We'll show you a sample error report. Then we can try logging into the SMS or address these errors encountered. All right, so this is a sample error report that we have generated previously ahead of the session. So this is just a sample so we can walk you through how you can resolve errors on your side. So for example, first error here for NAT10, the error we encountered is training organization identifier and name and combination do not match any RTO listed on TJA. If you can remember on the first part of the webinar, I mentioned that the legal name should match rather the one listed on training.gov website if you are a registered training organization. In our case, we got this error because eSkilled is not an RTO. We are only a software provider. So, the system detected that eSkilled did not match any RTO listed on TGA. That's why we encountered this error message. Next one is we also have here a sample for NAT20. It's saying only one record is permitted for training organization delivery location identifier 28. That's the location for each training organization identifier. So let's go back to the SMS and check that specific location. So if you can remember how to go to locations, you can just select settings, then select locations. Let's look for the location 28. So we have here 28. So the error states that only one record is permitted for training organization delivery location identifier. It's very important to note that the location should uniquely describes a location, meaning the location ID should vary from one location to another as well as the location name to avoid any reporting errors. So if this is the case, you can just edit the location ID of one of your locations to resolve the reporting error. Next error, we have here NAS30. Um, the error states program identifier QAP27 must be a valid qualification course or skill set code listed on training.gov.au. So let's check for this specific program identifier. Let's go back to the SMS. Let's go to programs. Then programs here. Then let's search for QAP27. Yep. So we have here a program, QAP27. The program name is QA Program 27. The error states that this is not a valid qualification. Currently, this is set to qualification or accredited course. But if we check TJA, let's check. So when we pull this one up in the TGA, there is no valid qualification or no existing valid qualification for QAP 27. That's why we're getting this error. So if you've noticed, we don't have any qualification with program code QAP 27 and program name QA program 27. So if this is the case, you need to correct your program settings to resolve the AVETMISS error or the error from the NAT30 file. Right? Let's move on to other errors. We have a lot of errors that we can check to provide you further assistance in resolving the errors. We have here for NAT 80, invalid date of birth. This is for client identifier SP32387. We also have disability flag, indigenous status identifier, and for NAT 85, we have your client last name. Let's start checking the errors under NAT 80 first. So SP32387. So what you need to do is go back to your student management system and pull up the records for this specific student. All right, and let's pull this one up. So we have QA student 1012201. So to check these fields, the date of birth, you need to go to the details tab. Let's check. All right. Currently, we don't have a date of birth for this specific student. To resolve the reporting error, you can just update the date of birth. So after you filled out that information, you can just select update to save your changes. Next error we need to address is disability flag as well as indigenous status identifier. So to pull up those fields, what you need to do is go to enrollments, then select action, then edit. All right, we have already we have here some information already populated, so you can just select the continue button to be routed to the AVETMISS tab. So we have your disability flag and invalid indigenous status identifier. So what we can do is update these fields to resolve reporting issues or reporting errors. So I'll just select no and indigenous status identifier. For this one, you can just select this. And of course, since we are already in the AVETMISS tab and what we have here is currently as just a sample error report, you also need to, just a reminder that you also need to fill out all of the fields here to avoid any reporting errors. So let me just try filling out some of the fields here that are blank. English for the employment status, you need to fill this one out. Currently at school, no. Right, to get the job. Great. Prior education flag. Let's fill this one out. All right. And again, apprenticeship and traineeship, that is only applicable for students taking up apprenticeship and traineeship. Once you have already completed the required fields under AVETMISS, you can just select continue. Once you are routed to the units tab, you can just select the submit button to resolve the reporting errors. All right, that's it for this part. Then we also need to check another error under the student, that's the client last name. So client last name must not be blank or contain numbers. So the format is invalid since we have numbers included in the surname. So if that's the case, you need to revise or update the surname of the students. So it can be incorrect data entry or you miss a specific field to fill out, which resulted to a reporting error in AVETMISS or upon submission. Right? So that's it for client last name. We also have other errors that we can check. We have here outcome ID 70 should not be used for this activity and date when submitting to the end of year collection. So let's pull up the record for the student SP17. So it's still trying to load. It's telling us that outcome ID 70 should not be used. So it's still loading. So trying to pull up the record for the student. All right. And I believe this is for, let me just check, PSBCRT 41. All right. So we have here outcome ID 70. This is continuing activity. Since for this one, we should ensure to use the correct outcome code if the course has already ended to resolve reporting errors. So let's just check another error. This one is related to the delivery mode SP24 28480. Just pull up the record for the student. All right, then let's go to units. All right. So it's telling us delivery mode identifier. So if this is the case, we have selected information that are not matching. So for this one, this is for this specific unit. Pull up. All right. So TA, currently this is credit transfer or national recognition. So for this one, meaning this has been for this one 51, 50 to 60. All right. So for this specific error, what happened was the delivery mode identifier, meaning this has been delivered internally. However, this does not match the outcome, which is recognition, credit transfer or national recognition. Let's check the unit delivery mode. Yep, this is currently internal. So if this is credit transfer or national recognition, the assumption is this specific training was not delivered internally. That's why we're getting an error because the information does not match. So again, we have multiple sources for errors. It can be a data entry error. We failed or we missed to fill out some of the AVETMISS related fields, or the information are not matching. So let's make sure that we have double checked all of the required information before we submit our report. We can also make use or utilize AVS, and that way we can check the different errors that we need to address before submission. All right, so that's it for this part. As we approach the end of this webinar, it's important that we complete all required fields for AVITMIS and rectify any data entry errors before the impending deadline. It is advisable to initiate the process as early as now by running the report in AVS and addressing any identified errors. If you encounter errors during the report generation that you find unfamiliar, we strongly recommend reaching out to us via email at support@eskill.com.au. Please include a screenshot of the filters used for exporting NAT files. The screenshot that we're referring to is like this one, and also provide us a detailed report of the issue or the errors encountered. This proactive approach will enable our support team to offer more comprehensive assistance, ensuring your compliance with AVITMIS requirements. Your collaboration in this matter will contribute to a smoother and error-free submission process. Thank you, everyone. So if you have further concerns or questions, this is the end or the last part of our webinar. Please feel free to send it to our Q&A chat box. So we'll just stay here. We still have remaining time before we end the session. Thank you as well, Monique. Great. And we are also going to send out the feedback form. So please feel free to complete the feedback form whenever you're available. And that way you can provide feedback to us and use that feedback to improve our upcoming webinars. If you have further concerns or questions, again, please feel free to contact us. Do not hesitate to send us an email at support@eskill.com.au, or you may contact us via call. That's 1-300-884-811. So, yep, you can also take a screenshot of the information if you wanted to take note of our email address as well as our support line. Thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to contact us. Since we still have remaining hours or remaining minutes before we end or conclude the session, you may also send it to the Q&A chat box. Thank you so much for your time today. I believe we receive another question from Monique. The vet flag, when should it be yes or no? So your vet flag indicates whether the intention of the program or subject is vocational education. You need to select yes if the intention of your program or subject is vocational. Otherwise, if it's not vocational, you can just select no. Hope that answers your question, Monique. Yes. If you're delivering programs that are vocational, yep, it should be yes. So we'll just stay here to entertain more questions, or if you have any clarification regarding the topic for today, please feel free to send it to the Q&A chat box. Reg will also respond to your queries. I will also be here waiting to, of course, address your queries as soon as possible. Thank you so much. All right, so while waiting, we also wanted to remind everyone that we recommend starting with setting up your programs and program instances correctly on set, and then ensuring fields that are completed already to ensure that data is complete when AVETMISS reporting comes in. So just a soft reminder for everyone, since our AVETMISS reporting deadline is coming up. So just a reminder, just something you need to know before you do your or run your report in AVS. Again, thank you so much everyone for joining us in today's webinar, and we're hoping to meet with every one of you or join please join us in our upcoming webinar sessions. So thank you so much everyone for your time. We really appreciate the time that you have spent with us to attend today's webinar. And if you have further concerns or queries regarding AVITMIS, please feel free to send us an email or you may give us a call so that we can address your concerns or queries as soon as we can. Thank you.